It's only natural to want to compare Universal to Disney. You know, like they're both titans in the theme park industry right here, only a few miles from each other. And especially with Epic Universe on the horizon, people are talking about this a lot. But you know, the major contrast between the two, at least in my opinion, the thing that stands out the most when we look at them both side to side, is that Universal is so much more chill than Disney. And today, I'm gonna tell you why. All right, we can't start this conversation today without talking about planning. There is a stark contrast between what's required if you're planning a Universal vacation versus planning a Walt Disney World vacation. It really is night and day. You know, Universal is one of those places where you can like decide you're gonna go to Universal today, roll out of bed, wash your face, buy a ticket at the gate and go and have a fantastic time. And that's not quite the same thing. You know, it's not quite possible in the same way over at the most magical place on earth. There's such a long list of things to consider and dates to mark on your calendar so that you can book dining, for example. You have to understand how to use some of the products over at Walt Disney World, like Lightning Lane, or you definitely won't be able to get your money's worth. Goodness knows, if you don't understand the product entirely, you might not be able to get your hands on it at all. And that can be really intimidating for first-time visitors. Even if you're not a first-time visitor, it can be incredibly overwhelming. I mean, even if you're there all the time, like I am, it can be hard to get a handle on what you need to do in order to do the things that you want to do. And there are so many opportunities for you to miss out on the things that you want to do. And it creates an environment that's just not that fun. It's certainly not the environment that we all kind of reminisce about from years past, where you could just show up, go, and have a good time. But you can still do that here at Universal, which is great because most people, they want their vacation to be fun. Even the planning process. And planning a trip to Disney, you know, it can feel kind of like the worst parts of planning a wedding. A trip to Universal is more like planning a brunch. You know, another thing that just had to make the list is that Universal is slightly less crowded than Disney. And I don't mean this just by the numbers, you know, like there are less people that visit Universal per year than over at Disney. There's also less park here at Universal than there is over at the Walt Disney World Resort. But even in the way that the park is like managed and where there is to be in this park, it makes for a much more chill experience because there are places to pull off, sit down, eat, chill. It really is a lot easier to just be here at Universal than it is at Disney. Like, quick service is a fantastic example of this. Because of the way that they do quick service here, you will have a place to sit down and eat. And that's not necessarily true if we're talking about, you know, like little kiosks, but still there are places to pull off. There are benches all over the place so that you can sit and eat your jacket potato or whatever else it is that seems to tickle your fancy. But even when the park is crowded, there seems to be an effort toward crowd control that disperses people in such a way that can make it easier to just be here, which is really nice. And it's a stark contrast to what you get over at the Walt Disney World Resort. It's honestly one of the reasons that we found ourselves preferring to come to Universal for a chill day versus go to Disney, even though Disney is much more convenient for us to visit. And you know, like so many of the other things that we have or could talk about today, this contributes to the overall environment that is Universal. When you give your guests the ability to do the most basic of things, sit down, cool off, grab a drink, eat a meal, it makes them more chill. It makes them enjoy the experience that much more. And if guests are enjoying the experience that much more, it's easier on the team members. And if it's easier on the team members and the guests, the other guests have a better time too. And you know, when you make things easier and more pleasant for one group, for one subset of people, you make it easier and more pleasant for everyone, which is definitely reflected here, just in the guests, in the team members, in the overall experience. So the next thing that we have to talk about is the Universal Express Pass system, their skip the line service. In my opinion, it's much better than what they're doing over at the Walt Disney World Resort, though I will say Disney is catching up with their new Lightning Lane Premier Pass. So the way that the skip the line service works here at Universal is you buy yourself the pass, and then you decide what you want to do, and you do it. Yeah, that's the whole strategy. That's everything you need to know. Now, there are two different types of Express Pass. There's one that'll allow you to go on every ride that offers Express Pass once, and one that allows you to go on the rides as many times as you'd like. So, you know, choose wisely and think about how you want to experience the parks, but they both work in the same way. You just show up, scan your pass, That's it. No selecting times, no virtual queues, none of that nonsense. You just go. It's honestly such a simple process. And if you're an annual pass holder, or at least the top tier annual pass holder here at Universal, you get Express Pass for free after 4 p.m., which is a pretty great perk. All right, last but not least, and I'm gonna tell you right now, brace yourselves, because some of you are not gonna like what I have to say here. Thrill ride energy is much better than nostalgia overload, especially if what you're looking for is a chill vacation. See, I told you I was gonna rub some of you the wrong way. Now look, everyone visits theme parks for different reasons, especially when we're talking about Universal versus Disney. I mean, Disney is one type of product that has one target audience, and Universal is a different type of product that has a different target audience. But there's really no getting around the fact of the matter that the environment at both of these places is very different. Universal is one of those places that, you know, it's here for your enjoyment. It's here for the thrills and for the entertainment. That's where the focus is. Disney, on the other hand, is selling nostalgia. They're selling you that memory, that experience that you had, or that experience that you remember having from back in the day, and the idea that you could share that and pass it on with your family and your kids and whatnot, which is great. But sometimes that's force-fed to the family, you know? But you can't force that. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people who plan their Disney vacations and they really go all in on them, they have yet to realize that they can't force it. They overplan, and it makes this like stressful environment, not only for themselves, but also for everyone else, because the goal, the aim is to recreate that perfect moment, to manufacture that memory. But there's no such thing as manufacturing memories. It never works out. Here at Universal, it feels overall like there's much less pressure to make the perfect moment, you know? And that really resonates throughout the entire park. You can feel that when you're here. Everyone's just here to have a good time, and it's okay if things aren't perfect. And there's really no ignoring that contributes to the overall chill that you get when you're visiting this park. Also, as an additional little tidbit about nostalgia, just because Universal isn't a park that is selling you nostalgia doesn't mean that people aren't nostalgic for this park. I mean, that's not necessarily something that I experienced because I didn't grow up coming here. My first visit was just over a year ago at this point, but I still feel that nostalgia of being in a place like this because I loved going to amusement parks when I was in high school. It was like the highlight of my summer, even though I didn't go all of that often. And no, I'm not talking about Disney, I'm talking about like Six Flags, you know, like a place where you could go on coasters and experience thrill rides. But that's not to say that people aren't nostalgic for what's here in this park. I mean, just ask a longtime Universal fan about the ET ride. You know, at the end of the day, no matter where you're visiting, if it's here at Universal Orlando, the Walt Disney World Resort, Gatorland, Six Flags, or any other place that you choose to spend your time off, you can make your experience a chill one. It's really about how you choose to go about your day. But I do think that there's something in the bones of a place, you know? Things that make up the foundation of that experience that can make it easier or in some cases more difficult to achieve that. So in other words, yeah, you can still have a chill time at Walt Disney World, but you might have to know more ins and outs. You might have to do a little bit more planning, and for some people that might kill the whole vibe, you know? Now, the really notable thing about Universal Orlando, at least in comparison to Walt Disney World, is that it's much less work to achieve that level of chill that you might be looking for. You don't have to put in the same amount of planning. You don't have to jump through the same amount of hoops. And I think for a lot of people, that's why Universal Orlando is so much more appealing. It's much less effort, much less work, and you can have a vacation that feels like a vacation, and that ultimately gives you the opportunity to make those core memories that you're looking to make. Now, will this change over time? Maybe. Nothing truly lasts forever. And of course, with Epic Universe means updates and changes. We've even heard about some updates coming to Universal Orlando, which might be in connection to Epic, but it might also just be a result of changing times. How will those changes play out? We'll just have to wait and see. And who knows, maybe it'll impact how chill Universal is as a park or an overall resort. But one way or another, I think that there's just something about Universal, the combination of everything we talked about today, coupled with the fact that It's a place that doesn't take itself too seriously and gives you permission to just have fun. That makes this so chill. But I want to hear from you guys. If you've ever visited Universal before, tell me, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you find it to be more chill than Disney? Or do you find Disney to be more chill than Universal? I want to hear all your reasons why in a comment down below. But I think that's all for now. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Until then, bye.